of our study, Immerse. For those of you that stuck with us through this whole thing, congratulations. You're almost to the end of Revelation. We're in chapter 9 today. I believe that's today. And we are looking at, so 9 through 15 was, or 8 through 15 was today's reading. And so I just wanted to, I can't say that Revelation's something that I know a whole lot about. It's kind of one of those books that there are some great, amazing studies on Revelations, but not a lot of churches do big studies on the book of Revelation. Maybe we'll change that in the future. I don't know. But just looking at kind of what I looked at is when I was reading this, kind of just because I haven't talked about at all Revelations, the major themes, or some of the major things that stuck out to me. It's kind of less of a devotional, more just my thoughts on what the studies brought forth. So the message, obviously, to the 7 churches, that's kind of the beginning of Revelation, right? Through chapter 3, he addresses the 7 churches. And then there's the seals. Christ proclaims worthy to open the seals, right? There's the 7 tribes and the 7 seals. He opens the first seal, then he opens the second seal, and the first seal remains open, and it's actually doing some reading, and apparently there's some symbolicness to that they're both opened and remain open as he goes through that. And Christ alone is the only one that can open it. And the 7th seal comprises of 7 trumpets as it's opened. The significance and importance of that 7th seal is kind of the main theme for up to chapter 8 and 9. And so as we kind of read for today and look ahead to the end of the book, the true church through time, kind of just that, looking at this is what's happening present, right? All of what's happened in Acts and all of those books have been kind of what's taken place in the early church. And now Revelation was written to John, who wrote the Gospels of John, and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And it was for us to see what was to come. It was what did he say? It was what did he say? It was a revelation. No, that's always, it's in the beginning. Oh, I wrote it down. Here it is. The beginning phrase of the verse is to show his servants things which must shortly take place. That's Revelation 1:1. And so as we look at these ideas of things that are to shortly take place. Now, John's writing this, and I've kind of said this before, and I think this is an important reminder to us, that the early church sold everything they had and followed Jesus and lived that way. And because they thought Jesus was coming back tomorrow. And so when they were like, this revelation to them of things that shortly will come, I don't think they had in mind that thousands of years would pass. I don't think they thought thousands of hours, thousands of days would pass before Christ would fulfill this prophecy. And the 7 trumpets are a symbolization for us. The 7 trumpets are plagues and warfare, during which Jesus is going to administer judgment upon the rebellion of mankind. And so we look at that, and that's what so we have the 7 seals and the 7 things, and it's actually the 7 seals is mirrored in 2 Peter, is mirrored in Acts. It's referenced in Acts. It's referenced in a lot of Old Testaments. Joel, Obadiah, Zechariah, think in where else? I think there was a couple other spots that I saw as a reference points that I kind of looked at briefly, because I think that they kind of mimicked or mirrored the seven seals, which was kind of an interesting parallel. And it's cool how God does that. Takes Old Testament Moses was an idea of what Christ would be. We look at some of the Old Testament. We look at Joseph was kind of the same thing, and then there was just a lot of Old Testament things to project or show us to what Jesus would come and do, and that happens throughout the Bible. Now, most of the Bible is written literally, and you can kind of understand what it means. Revelations is a little different, and it's probably the most confusing book because of it being different. Talking about the lion, the heads, and there aren't lions without multiple heads. What is he talking about? And trying to understand for us. Well, I think that the thing to understand is its symbolization. It's a reminder to us. Now, the Bible is literal in most aspects, and in Revelation, it's symbolic. It's a there's hidden meanings within the text, and that's what makes it challenging. And what most people don't like about it is because we don't know. Everybody always looks at tribulation, pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib. I always joke that I believe in pan-trib, and that it'll pan out in the end, because really debating it doesn't matter. It's interesting to think about, but does it really? It does matter. Most of us would want God to come back before the tribulation period, before all of that takes place. But debating it and talking about it really doesn't change it when it will happen. But looking at those things and understanding, what's to come, the mark of the beast. Everybody's always had speculation on what the mark of the beast is. Now even today they're talking about implanting chips into us, so that they can scan us and know who has gotten the coronavirus and who has gotten the vaccine for the coronavirus and all their vaccines and their medical records and stuff. And sounds kind of cool, but is it the mark of the beast? The answer is nobody really knows. I think you can look into it and understand, well, maybe this could be, but what will the mark of the beast look like? And the fact is that you can't take it if you're a believer, and that's the important thing to remember. And so, we were looking for, well, we can't take these new things because they could be the mark of the beast. So as we look at Revelation, as we kind of end this chapter, the next few chapters, and the important thing for us to remember as we wrap up this is that we win in the end. As Christ followers, if we remain faithful, and that's a key, I think, theme in this, talking through the seven tribes, those that remain faithful, looking to those things. Like if we remain faithful, then in the end, we win. That all of the turmoil and the unknown will be kind of all thrown off, but this is the truth, and we win in the end. And that's the encouragement for us, to look ahead, to stay faithful to God, to not sway to the opinions and the thoughts of man, but to trust the Lord, to look to Him. So we won't know the day or the hour when Christ will return, but He will return for us. And so some of us will be alive for that. Some of us will be raised up and reign with God on earth, the new earth, for 1,000 years. And that's a time, can you imagine a time where someone reigns for 1,000 years and political corruption doesn't take place, over that time. It's peace, it's justice, it's like all mercy, all of those things like are extended, and that is the themes of those reigns. Like that is exciting to think about, that there could be a time and a place where that peace reigns. So anyway, those are just a few of my thoughts from the book of Revelation as we end. I haven't read the last few chapters yet, but I'm supposed to read through 15 today. I hope that you've done that. If you haven't done this study and you kind of just catching in and hopping in and going, oh, I would be curious about this. The purpose of this Immerse study was not to so much look at the individual verses and try to gain as much knowledge from those things, which is good. I think a lot of times that's what we do, right? We pick and we kind of read passages and parts, and we really digest what those things are saying. But the purpose of this study was to look at the overall picture, starting in the Gospels, all the way through to Revelation, and how they correlate and how it projects to the future. It shows us, the whole process to get to the end. And so that's what this study was really about, is looking at it from the big picture, not the book by book or verse by verse or chapter by chapter, but as a whole together. And to me, it's been, eye-opening to see how we go from the Gospels to Revelation and just the process within that. And I think it's interesting, too, it's important to understand what came before, obviously, the Gospels and the long-waited time for this catalyst, or Jesus, the catalyst, to start the process to unfold the end time. And not even Jesus knows when this will all be done, when he will return. Only the Father, as it says. So anyway, I hope this was a good study for you. I encourage you, take the study. It doesn't matter when you start it. I encourage you to go back and read it. And maybe it was some people complained about being too much every day. And that's true. I know. I felt that. Read what you can. Split it up. Make it longer. It can be longer than study than the 40 days that we put it out to do it. So break it up and make it your own. But I think it's really an important and a great idea to really study it from that broad perspective of the whole picture together. So anyway, thanks for watching tonight, and we will see you guys soon.